Hello and Happy New Year, everybody. I hope that we have exorcised the evil that was 2019 for good, and 2020 will bring wonderful things. And to kick off those wonderful things, I'm going to be teaching you how I make plush teeth. And let me show you an example of what they can look like. I'm not going to be using white because I'm almost out of that material, but I'll be using a pale pink. But it's more about the process when I'm teaching. So this guy is not quite done, but you can see the teeth here are plush. And this is the look we're going to be going for. So let me show you how to do just that. So we will need a piece of paper, a pen, probably something you're able to trace or draw on white with. It won't bleed through. I'm using a silver gel pen here because it's not too offensive when you flip it over or stitch through it. You will need a sewing machine, nice lycra material or something. You can use felt, whatever you want. I like the lycra because it keeps everything slick and it stretches so you can puff it out a bit. So to start, you're going to want to, have your head mouth just about ready to have the teeth installed. So you want it lined. You don't have to have the lips, whatever step in the process you have. So you just want the mouth and you want the general idea of the shape. And then you want to start to draw your teeth. Do be aware that if your mouth curves like this, you need to, pay attention to that when you're gluing the teeth in. So we're going to go ahead and draw generally what we want on the paper. I just kind of draw it on the flat edge, so let me just do that real quick. And mind you, they won't be as sharp in plush form. So I'm going to go for kind of a basic canine. So you've got your canine. I like to add the next tooth inward, a little bit spiky. Gives it kind of a different look. You can do whatever you like. So I just do half of it. I fold it, line up the edge, and I shouldn't have done it in the middle of the paper, but I did. You even get a really nice look if you slightly bend in the canines like this and just glue it down like that. Round them off because when you fold it inside out, those points will be rounded anyway. And if you round it before you point it, or before you flip it inside out, you allow the seams to have a little more room inside. So if you made a really extreme point and you flipped it inside out, those seams are going to pucker and make it bulge, and there'll be like a little ball on top of your tooth, and you're just like, this is awful. There are ways around that, but it involves cutting really close to your stitching, and depending on your material or, how comfortable you are doing that sort of thing, it might be a little tricky. So plus teeth are slightly rounded anyway, and we're going for plush and cute. So, you can play with things. So from here, we're going to get our material, which I have a little bit of scraps right here. Again, I'm just going to use pale pink because I'm almost out of white. I need to restock. Okay. So I'm going to trace this with the silver. And I'm going to give, enough space around the edges to work with. I'm only going to trace my pattern on once. And of course, once you made your paper pattern, test it inside the mouth and see how that looks to you. If it's too big or the teeth don't align the way you feel like they would in a skull, if the top teeth were there, whether you're adding them or not, it's just a piece of paper. You can redo it and until you find a shape that you like. Okay. Oh, yes, and you will need scissors and thread and pins or something. So I'm just going to cut it out in a big block like that. And then I'm just going to slap it down on the fabric again and cut out another piece. And we can remove this. So I'm just slapping the top piece, there we go, on top of the other piece. And I'm just going to pin that. And I'm going to stitch everything on top and leave the bottom completely open. So I will do that. Okay, I've just sewn it in black so that you guys can see better. Clearly you'd want to use white on white fabric and stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and cut it out. I'm making my seams pretty thin, and I'll show you what I'll do on the tips and the dips so that you don't get any weird puckering or funkiness going on. And as for the bottom, you've got your line. I'm going to leave some seam allowance down there as well because we're going to be gluing it closed. I used to hand sew this stuff and I'm like, oh, it should be hand sewn because, I don't know, it's cleaner, I guess, but it didn't look cleaner on the outside, and I know it might feel like gluing's cheating, but if the finish is cleaner, it's not wrong, you know? You can do things however you like. So for the dips, I'm going to cut down pretty close to the stitching, like that, but not entirely down there. I'm going to do that for most of the dips. And that will allow the fabric to move around when you flip it inside out and not pucker. So now for the tips, you don't have to do this. These tips are pretty round, but you can just slice off like that. If you had really sharp ones, technically I should be cutting it like that to allow room. But, you know, honestly, it's however you want, but you have to be really careful because it's like almost no seam allowance. So usually I just go doot doot and make a little triangle on top, and that's plenty. And then you're gonna carefully flip this puppy inside out. And this is the fun part. You're gonna have your pins ready. Gently poke everything through without actually stabbing through the material. Yes, you will also need a hot glue gun. I apologize for not mentioning that earlier. Look at that. See, that's such a nice, clean little tip because of our seam treating. Very nice. No puckering up top. Most excellent. Okay. So yeah, you'll need stuffing and a hot glue gun. So go ahead and, you know, prep your hot glue gun now before you start stuffing this, which I'm not doing, but it's okay. The magic of editing. You know, push out all your tips. You can see how this one's kind of puckering. So if we address that seam, cut away a bit like that. Let's go ahead and do this one. Just cut the tip seam away. Goodbye. Push it back out. See how much more flat that is. Very nice. And that's how you generally sew stripes on a suit too, is, you know, you've got like a hole like this and you put your stripe there. I go, and then I actually snip, snip very close to the edge, kind of the same sort of theory as flipping acute angles inside out, because, you know, you're dealing with acute angles. You don't want the puckering. You want it to lay nice and flat like that. And that's how I do stripes. There's almost no seam allowance at the tips, but you know, if you mess up, you can re-grab some of the outside material, and you know what? It doesn't do anything. It's such a minuscule amount that it's all good. There we go. So let's get our stuffing and get going. So I'm gonna pause and get my glue gun going too. So in the craziness of New Year's, I left my glue gun in a car that it's not mine, and I don't have it, but I can still finish this and show you what it's going to look like without the glue gun. I will just not be able to do the final step, but it really won't make a difference. You'll see. You'll see. So now we're stuffing it, which can be a pain. So you're going to have your pins ready to pin the opening shut, so you can actually work with these teeth. So I like to stuff the canines. Just sort of pin the edge. Keep it closed so the stuffing doesn't puke out on you. So let's keep going. For the longest time, I was having trouble making plush teeth. I'm just like, they look awful, minky sucks, nothing's working. And then it dawned on me, well, they're plush teeth. Why don't I use plush making techniques? And I was just like, oh, joy. And then I made the connection, and now people like it. And they're like, hey, I want to know how to do that. And I'm like, well, okay, let me show you. There we go. Stuff this little second pointy teeth. Sometimes it helps if you pre-wad your stuffing, as you can see there, me doing that with my fingers. And yeah, you might be using a lot of pins. These can be fun to play with, as in they will try to puke their polyfill all over you and stab you with the pins that you put in. The worst part is getting these little teeth, making some sort of polyfill tube, trying to keep it in there while you're trying to close it up. Can be challenging. See, it's just puking it all over the place. Get in there. Okay, we're just about there. Let me just put a pin in that. There we go. All right, our teeth are stuffed, but they don't look quite right just yet. So now, our next step is thread sculpting. Yeah, we're going to thread sculpt it before we glue it, because let me tell you, if you glue it wrong, putting a needle through hot glue is a pain in the butt, and you have to clean the needle every time, and it's just, it's not a fun experience. So we're going to get our nice embroidering thread ready and our hand sewing needle, and then we will do that. Okay, so now onto the thread sculpting. I'm going to be using black just to show you guys what the heck I'm actually doing. And I like to double thread my needle, so what that means is you pull the string through the needle, and then you've got a piece on each side that is the same length. And now pick a back side, and that's where you're going to go through, and I'm going to go through near the bottom. So I'm going to imagine a seam line, and I'm going to kind of go through just above that. Come on. Here we go. So I'm going to, line up with the tooth line, go through that near the bottom, make sure I'm coming out the right spot on the side that you're going to see. And now to make sure that the thread doesn't slip, which shouldn't be a problem in here, but I like to go through a very tiny bit up top. Just a minuscule amount like that. Pull the thread through, make sure the pieces are staying the same length as I pull it through. There we go. Leave a decent amount hanging out the bottom. So now I'm going to catch a bit of fabric down here where I went in, right? And I'm going to it gets very annoying with all these threads and pins all over the place. I'm gonna, oh, okay, that didn't work. For some reason, my thread's being a turd. Sorry. Let me just redo those steps. You can see it in real time now. So I'm going to catch a little bit. Avoid the pin heads. Okay. Now I'm just going to kind of let that go. And I'm going to use the end bits that I have. And now the thread that I have, make a knot. And now we're going to kind of pull it to the tension we want. Enough that it pinches the fabric and gives a nice look, but not too much that you scrunch everything together. So this is a good tightness. So I'm going to do 2 more knots to secure everything. And it does help to have a second hand sewing needle with you. I don't know where my second one went. Because now we're going to go through our where our knot is, kind of come out anywhere else in the fabric. Again, avoiding the pin heads because we've got a long trail of thread behind us. And it's such a pain in the butt. And we're going to kind of pull that knot through. Cut it. But then we've got these little dangly bits at the end, the end of our thread. But, you know, we've got all this good thread on our needle, so if you have a second hand needle, you can now, I'm just going to take it off and show you. We can now go in again, where our knot is, kind of just stick the needle in anywhere like that. Grab our little end bits, put them through the eye of the needle, which can sometimes be tricky. They like to fray. You can just recut the edges. Make sure that they're flat, and we'll go through the eye of the needle. And now we're going to pull them through just like we did with the first piece. So it's just kind of sticking out randomly in the tooth. Give it a little bit of tension, cut the end, give it a squish to hide the little bits inside of the teeth. And there we have it. One line is done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, you know, for each tooth, and we'll take it from there. Alrighty, I've gone ahead and done all of the teeth. I kind of did just the basic canine with your 6 incisors and your 2 canines. Looking pretty good. So now, if you didn't leave your hot glue gun in a car, you would have it prepped by now. And what you would do is you would make sure that your stuffing's all the way down. And with that seam allowance that you've kind of left, you're gonna just get a tiny bit of hot glue up in there and pinch it really fast. And lick your fingers and pinch it, right? You do that, pinch it, glue, you know, get that in there. Put a little glue, pinch it, make sure the stuffing's in. Just pretend that I'm doing it right here, right now. Glue it, pinch it, get the corner, finish that off. And then you would cut away flat the extra flat, gluey, stuffy bits, right? And now you can put the teeth into the head just like that. We're going to be, you know, running a line of glue across the bottom. But, you know, try not to reactivate the glue you just used to seal the teeth. And you can even get a really nice look if you slightly, like, bend in the canines like this. And just glue it down like that. So it looks something like this from the front. And that's pretty cool. But, you know, you can play with it, do whatever you want. I suppose you could do something fancier to close up the bottom. But that is essentially the plush teeth. Here you go. It's going to get a nice little close-up look there. And that's it, you guys. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining me in welcoming 2020 with some cool plush teeth. Please do share what you make. And, you know, if you could improve upon the method, then wonderful. You know, definitely do so. My word is not gospel. It's just there for you to grow and keep creating wonderful things. Have a wonderful year, you guys. Let's all make it an amazing one.